It's Spoilerin time. And if I could explain it to you very quickly, Spoilerin time is where we get to watch shows because we have this other show, Cordkillers, you've probably seen, where we figure out what's out there to watch. Then we watch it and we come here and we talk about it. This week we'll talk about Miami Vice, season 3, episode 7, El Viejo, starring Willie Nelson. Also starring Steve Buscemi. Oh my God. Moon Knight, season 1, episode 3, and Picard, season 2, episode 7. I'm Tom Merritt. He's Brian Brushwood.
Dude, I am fired up. I have so many hot takes. What are we starting with first?
The coldest of them, Picard.
The coldest of hot takes.
Episode 7. Let's get Picard out of the way because I have a feeling you and I are maybe of an accord about Picard. What did you think about this episode?
I literally can't really tell you much of anything that happened during this episode, and I watched the whole thing fairly recently. I watched it with my full attention.
You watched it today.
Yes, I did.
Damn.
Well, thank you for outing me.
Oh, sorry.
I will say, boy,
That's
oh boy,
recent.
did I love the opening scene. I was actually steeled to hate this episode because, like, they set it up so clumsily last episode by saying, I'm going to go inside Picard's mind. And
I was like, do you remember the classic TNG episode Shades of Grey where they ran out of money in the season? So they did a clip show where Riker is on a table remembering episodes from the first couple seasons.
Oh, I don't. But
almost felt like that, except they weren't clips. You know, it was all original, but I'm like, this is dangerously close to Shades of Grey.
However, the first like 3 minutes, I was already, I can't say whether or not I loved the episode, but I was very, very happy and confused when I hit play and suddenly Gaius Baltar is interviewing Jean-Luc Picard. It was amazing. James Callis is the guy's name. And it made me think back to, I don't know why I blurted it out when we were talking about Loki, but I wish that Gaius Baltar was there. Suddenly I remembered, yeah, because he's a lot like Loki. It's amazing. And then at the end of it, Jay Carnes, who is Dutch in The Shield, shows up. If I did like this episode, Tom, I liked it for all of the wrong reasons, and I'm willing to own that. I liked it because of actors that I know from other things.
I was confused because IMDb told me, so first of all, Gaius Baltar shows up, James Callis, and Eileen turns to me and goes, that's the guy from Battlestar Galactica. I'm like, no. That's Alexander Siddig. He played Bashir on Deep Space Nine, but they look a lot alike. And then we kept watching it, and I'm like, look up on IMDb. IMDb tells me that this episode stars James Callis as the psychiatrist, as well as Alexander Siddig.
What?
As Marcel Picard. However, I think that may have been a mistake because now that I'm looking at this episode's IMDb, it only shows James Callis as the cast.
Yeah, I think IMDb is fueled by fans, which are maybe not as precise as an AI.
Editing allowed, and I think other people made the same mistake. And the reason, one of the big reasons, is they do resemble each other, and they put Callis in the blue uniform that Alexander Siddig's character, Dr. Bashir, would play, and they've done so many of these little cameos. I'm like, what a great way to get Bashir in here. Have him show up in Picard's imagination. But then they did the thing where like everybody confuses those two. Like, oh, is that the Bashir guy on Battlestar Galactica? No, it's a different actor. I didn't like it.
Really?
I didn't like that they did that until I found out that they actually didn't put Alexander Siddig in the show at all. And then I liked it.
Okay.
But when I thought they had Alexander Siddig play Maurice Picard later in the episode, I was like, why would they do that? But they didn't.
Let's talk about the Romulan in the room.
What a shock.
When Picard first said, hey, you're that chick I'm into in the future, and she said, no, I was like, whoa, I guess not. And then when she was in the subtitles, closed captioning English, says, speaks Romulan, I was like, well, that's weird if she's not that Romulan to be speaking Romulan. And then they kept framing shots of her hair over her ears so that they looked pointed even though they weren't. I thought, that's a bit odd. Then she puts on a gizmo to go into Picard's mind that is literally the shape of a Romulan ear. And then she takes it off to reveal her round ear and then does a magic gesture. And then it's a Romulan ear. So
It's overly complex.
good job, you. No.
As much as I am enjoying the nostalgic aspects of this, I don't know where this plot is going, and it's overly complex. It doesn't. I'm like, why did we have to go through all these imaginary like memories of Picard's mom just for him to come out with the advice of learn from your enemy? Like, it seemed like overly complex just to deliver that little nugget to Picard.
Can I say something that I saw on a channel that is different from our channel?
I suppose.
I'm
I
a
don't know.
fan of Red Letter Media, and the very first episode, they tried to think of the dumbest thing they could think of for Picard to do, and Rich Evans said, the Borg Queen is his mom. And then this episode began with a queen who was his mom.
Dangerously close. Dangerously close.
I mean, if one was truly cynical, and I mean, that's as far as I could talk. I can't talk anymore.
You think there's a body somewhere that a nanobot might have to?
I
Except
don't,
we're back
I
in
don't,
time. We're not that matters.
I am
but we are
uncomfortable. I've
prior
already
to
said
his
too much.
mom's- Yeah. I don't know. When they were doing the flashbacks in Picard's brain, I may have folded laundry.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't know.
And that, as much as you were excited to see Dutch, I felt like that was kind of clunky too. Maha! I am an FBI detective, and
Aha! I'm your co-host.
now
It's called law enforcement, Tom.
Why did you
Well,
take
I'm taking you downtown. Let me explain what
Also-
law enforcement does after I used it as an explanation.
Also, they went through all this setup to open what looked like a bottle of Canar, but was like a special bottle that would call Q, and Q doesn't come, and instead the FBI does. Why?
Because they couldn't afford Genie.
Possible.
I
don't know, man. I did like seeing Callus, and I was very glad when Maurice Picard showed up in the actual flashback, and it wasn't Alexander Siddig, because I would have been like, that would be really unnecessarily complex. It is Callus all the way through. So
Here's what Picard is. Picard is on your wedding night, your new bride's dad dancing. You don't get it. You don't understand what's happening,
But you smile.
but you smile. And
Yeah.
you're happy that this moment is happening. That's Picard.
All right. I like that. I think we could leave it there. That's Picard, season 2, episode 7. Now let's talk about Moon Knight,
Oh,
season 1, episode 3. Where we go to Egypt. I actually kind of dig that we're expanding into a wider world of former gods or retired gods. I wasn't quite sure their status, but they're not the Eternals, nor are they Shang-Chi. They're something totally different.
they're in a completely different thing that they also call a god in the Marvel universe.
Yes.
And also they're the Egyptian theistic gods, so the Egyptians were right.
They're chill, is what they are.
They
They're taking her easy for a bit. That's their jam. They're like, what are you doing? Just picture everything they said in the Big Lebowski boys.
Hey,
Yeah,
man.
man, with you're churning up, you're fighting people.
You can't do that.
Can't be blocking the
Aren't you?
sun, dude.
What's going? You can't pull the moon in front of the sun when the mortals
Cool.
ain't expecting it, man.
It's all the time.
Really? Okay, so that's obviously the first big moment. Let me state that I think I could have been primed to totally swallow that whole, but I did not feel totally primed to swallow that whole.
I took some notes
Oh no!
because I forgot. I watched it. I definitely watched this episode, and I forgot about it until I read a recap about it, and then I remembered I watched the hell out of this thing. Here's the thing. Maybe you could have just bought a different star chart app instead of letting a god die? Maybe you have a star app.
How would that even work? Bryce. Where would you find another
Yeah,
app?
how are you going to get approval from the iOS store? Right, even put that on there.
The star maps,
30% is going to go to Apple? Come on.
it's
man.
like a calendar. We
Plus,
know
you
what
couldn't
they
get a
were.
connection out there.
This is a Disney property. They're not going to partner with Apple
And
on
why
this.
did he-
I don't even understand.
Why did he have to change the entire sky everywhere?
I mean, the real question
Bryce
is why
obviously
not?
doesn't understand cosmology. Okay,
Yeah.
fine.
I mean, hell, pay for a month of a subscription app to do it. Just I don't know. That's so someone's killing the Egyptian gods,
Okay.
right?
Yeah.
That's definitely happening, right?
Right. And
Yeah.
are they really gods if they
Well.
can be killed? Which I think is a
Yeah.
fair plot point. for
But
sure.
I do like that that's sticking around because that was a bit
Yep.
from the first episode. Hey, there's only 5 gods on your banner.
I don't want to add fuel to your fire, Bryce, but one thought that occurred to this guy is the crime is trying to dig up an Egyptian god. The suspect is in the middle of digging up an Egyptian god. And yet they failed to convict him of the crime of digging up an Egyptian god. That part was...
Rules of evidence in the Egyptian god legal system are fairly complex, apparently.
Legit point, Your Honor. I apologize.
Yeah.
Did anybody think the stuff with Mark's wife is very strange because you get the sense that they want her to hook up with Steven too, and it's very weird. I
actually sort of like that.
Okay.
Provisionally. I provisionally like that because it is a nice question of was she only attracted to the outer appearance of her husband, and his personality wouldn't work with hers. So what if it was a different personality? Would that change things? It's kind of there's an interesting question in there somewhere.
Which by the way, opens up 2 of my favorite parts of this episode. One of which being, this is the first time we've seen Steven say, no, I'm taking over and you get to be the one in the dark. And we also get the introduction of the fact that, there's some kind of killing and neither Mark nor Steven claims credit for it, which this is the first true eyebrow raising, okay, go on. What do you got here that I rather enjoyed?
I kind of wish that moment, that should be a great turn or a great surprise, right? Oh, we've spent 2 hours with these 2/3 personas, and oh my God, we didn't even realize that there was one missing. I feel like that should have had a little more pomp to it because that's a good storyline. I think that's a good storyline, and there are other shows that have hinted that there are multiple personas that are better than the way Moon Knight has done it, I think.
Yeah.
Although I don't know.
You have any further questions?
Well, I mean, maybe I'm, I don't know if this is Stockholm Syndrome or what, but it's I kind of dig seeing Steven kind of understand oh, I get my role now. I'm learning the ropes of this game, and I can, if not directly take over the body, I can at least affect Mark by talking to him in a, little angel or devil on his his shoulders.
No, you're right. There's character growth there. It's good.
I think so. Do you hate Steven as much as you used to, Bryce?
If he's the thing I don't like about Steven is that he clearly, when they got rid of Khonshu at the end of this episode, I thought, why is Steven around anymore? He just wants to go back to his normal life. And then I remembered that the whole thing with Arthur,
right? And they set up the thing with the star chart, and he's like, oh my God, I know this, and Mark doesn't.
I feel like what we need to start seeing in the next episode, because there's only 6 of these, we're halfway through all of them. Yes, is these two need to work together. They share a body. They both have different strengths. And if Steven is on board to work with Mark, and if Khonshu's gone, then they need to tag each other in at the right time. There's no more Bambi stumbling. I feel like that you have to share this body. One of you guys kills people. One of you is a thinker.
You just spelled out what will be the best episode, which is some moment where only Steven can solve the Jeep Drop puzzle, but they're under attack by armed guards, and only Mark can defend them. So they have to tag out back and forth at strategic moments.
And they figure out some unified way for both of them to rise up to the challenge. And Layla then realizes that that's who she truly loves.
Is all
the combined entity.
Yeah.
Steve and Mark. And so she marries both of them.
Yep.
Also, I definitely saw something in the comics that you both probably know about.
No, I ain't read none of it.
Then I won't say
am
it,
unfamiliar with the Moon Knight comics.
So people know things.
Okay, all right.
So that's all I'll say. But I didn't
do that.
I didn't hate it. I didn't hate it in that I don't really care about it. I'm no longer hurt that it's not great, but I'm okay it's not bad.
I'll tell you what, Tom, I'm not going to lie. My interest is waxing, not waning, unlike the sun. Am I right?
Oh, I see what you did there.
The moon wanes and waxes.
Yeah. I like
this
Moon
episode.
Knight. I don't love it, but I like it more than Falcon and the Winter Soldier.
Oh, by a lot. Yep.
Yeah.
All right, that is Moon Knight, Season 1, Episode 3. Let's move on to Miami Vice, Season 3, Episode 7, El Viejo, starring Willie Nelson, and as I couldn't help but reveal in the tease to today's Spoiler Time, Steve Buscemi. I had no idea that he was in this episode till we were watching it, and he walks on, and he's very, very obviously Steve Buscemi, even though he's super young. Like that guy's always been himself.
That might have been one of my favorite moments. Alone in a room, I'm watching this. I'm like, oh my God, that's Steve Buscemi. And I think, is it Steve Buscemi? And I go to lean forward, and then I look up, and I'm like, I don't need to type nothing.
Steve Buscemi. I just assumed he was supposed, I assumed Tom knew he was in this episode and just didn't tell us, or...
No.
Wow, yeah, but that's just...
I missed that one.
Also, shouts out to the fact that it opens with Wanted Dead or Alive, the Bon Jovi jam about melting faces, arena after arena.
Which is so weird because that is from then, but that song does not feel like it was from 86.
I had the same moment. Like, it does not, it feels timeless and amazing.
Like, isn't that song from the 90s? Or, I know it's old, but I didn't realize it was from back then.
The story I had heard when it came to the movie Young Guns 2 is that they actually approached John Bon Jovi to ask if they could license Wanted Dead or Alive. And he said, how about I write you a new song? And that's where Shot Down in a Blaze of Glory comes from.
Interesting. Yeah, because Wanted Dead or Alive came on the album after You Give Love a Bad Name, right?
Yeah, Slippery When Wet.
Slippery When Wet.
I was in 8th grade.
I was working at the radio station, and we got the band cover of Slippery When Wet as the cover of the 12-inch single for You Give Love a Bad Name.
What was banned about it?
It was a bikini picture.
Oh,
that was in 1985, too racy for record stores.
Oh wow, I'm seeing it now.
It is
pretty racy.
Yeah, it's all right.
Back in the day. Oh, there's some cleavage there. Okay. Anyway.
Yeah. So let's get to Willie Nelson, the old man who fought with the Texas Rangers of legend. Not the ones who drive around in cars these days, but the ones who rode on horseback. Willie Nelson. You know how old Willie Nelson was when he shot this episode of Miami Vice, Brian?
Oh, you mean the old man character from this show?
Yeah.
The 30-year-old show.
How old was he 30, 40
when
years
Willie Nelson
ago?
Shot this episode as the old man that they all respected. He was my age, exactly.
What?
52. Yeah.
Tom? Nope. Never mind. I couldn't think of anything funny and nice, and
I was like,
so.
Willie Nelson. Here's my thought process doing this. I'm like, man, I guess Willie Nelson always did kind of look old because he's not. So I went to look up how old he was now, because now he is very old, and thankfully still with us. And then I started doing the math, and I'm like, wait a minute, he was my age when they're treating him like he's 70 in this episode. I thought Willie Nelson did a bang up job as the old retired Ranger.
Yes, certainly much better than
Stone
Ted
Cold
Nugent.
Killer.
For 1,000 times over. Also, in terms of that old versus new old, like that side-by-side photo of Paul Rudd at his age is exactly the same age as Wilford Brimley in Cocoon, where he was playing an old man, you know.
And they do the Obi-Wan Kenobi with Mark Hamill one. I've seen that one too. Yeah.
Right, exactly. I liked this episode, and maybe it's living in Texas, growing up here mostly, that I found it a little bit clumsy, the love letter that they write to the Texas Rangers, which is fairly well known if you grow up. We're literally, one of our primary school courses is Texas history. So we already had to know all this, but it's like the very precise, as though it's the first time anyone has ever heard it, way that Don Johnson explains what Texas Rangers do.
I wonder if in 86, outside of Texas, obviously that just reads as exposition, but I wonder if 86 in Texas, that reads as like, oh my gosh, representation. We're seeing, you know, ourselves on primetime TV that in a way that's real rather than caricatured.
It could be. It definitely could be. I suspect it's look, I mean, they're in their third season. They got to have something new. There's no internet around. How else are you going to hear about Texas, which, by the way, is the only state in the union that's allowed to have its own standing army, which is the Texas Ranger. That's one of the rad things about Texas. Comes out.
Yeah, but good story built around it, nonetheless, I thought. But honestly, I got sucked into this one. I really thought it was a good story. There were a couple of weird moments. One was when Switek is going to the hotel that Willie Nelson's character was staying at, and I had to rewind it and put on captioning. He says, "Need an exterminator for these people down here."
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, that was definitely a surreal bit. The joke I made to Bryce before we started rolling was, world's friendliest slumlord, I guess. It's like
the hotel guy just felt like, oh right, okay, he's a straight shooting character who doesn't want trouble with the cops. He certainly wasn't going to take a stand and keep him out of there.
But also is delivering the mail as though he's a bellboy at the Four Seasons or something.
I can see that, where it's like, you know what, this is our community, and I serve it any way I can.
Yeah.
I think that tracks. The weird Western black and white flashback seemed a little jarring
and completely incomprehensible. Yeah. No time era made sense.
Other than
no
sort of
part
like
of
it was old timey days. That's kind of all it said to me.
It was like we meant to write a script where he's got PTSD, but we didn't have enough time. So enjoy this.
So much so that when it came to later and he was acting like a bad guy enough that I began to question, wait, was he one of the banditos that was shooting?
Maybe, right?
Or was he the Texas Ranger?
Well, Texas Ranger, one ranger, one riot. They never really back down from a fight.
Yeah. Also, at one point, they say, maybe I can get some prints off this gun right after wiping it clean.
Yeah, right? I totally noticed that. It's, yeah. Yeah.
I like the way this was shot. And the director of this episode is the person who directed a movie called City Limits. MST3K fans will know quite well because it's one of the more famous MST3K episodes where they did City Limits.
So let me challenge you, because right now, outside of the novelty of the first couple of episodes, I would say my favorite, certainly of this season, probably of anything past our initial, oh my God, it's Miami Vice, was Tubbs going undercover in the prison.
Mm-hmm.
Does this supplant that one for you?
That's a tough call. I think Willie Nelson is my favorite guest performer. And Steve Buscemi, who's only Steve Buscemi, just in a younger role, bolsters that. This is my favorite guest.
He's essentially playing the same character he plays in Reservoir Dogs.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, this is the best. If we're watching these for the guest appearances, this is the best of those. The story isn't as strong as the prison story. And I'm with you. I love that Tubbs got a strong
but also there was that awful shootout at the end that didn't
the shootout's
play
horrible in that
but
one.
They shot that episode in a jail, unlike the soundstage that they shot all of this episode on. All of those hotel rooms were clearly the same soundstage. Clearly the same soundstage that they shot the courtroom scene in from a few Miami Vice episodes ago.
The futuristic courtroom.
You can tell just because the corners of just if you eagle-eyed viewers, the corners don't
that
match.
Blue hotel room in the fancy hotel. Yeah.
they like you can see a gap, but like none of the walls are actually closed.
Yeah. But that's all I got on Miami Vice El Viejo. Now, it'll be a while before we do another Miami Vice, but if you just want to be prepared, the next one on the list stars Bill Paxton.
No kidding.
Yeah. So that one's called Streetwise, Season 3, Episode 10. Who knows who else might show up? Somebody who looks at IMDb closely. That's who knows. Well, that is it for this episode of Spoilerin Time. We are coming back strong next week when we have 2 episodes of Better Call Saul. They're giving us 2 episodes on Monday night, tonight, as we're recording this. So next week, we will talk about both those, Season 6, Episodes 1 and 2. Also, Barry returning with Episode 1 on Sunday, right before Spoilerin Time. So we will talk about Barry Season 3. Is it really Season 3 of Barry? That's crazy.
Holy
Season
cow.
3, Episode 1. And we will also continue probably shorter recaps of Picard, Season 2, Episode 8, and Moon Knight, Season 1, Episode 4. That's all coming up next week. Until then, spoil yourselves.
Diamond Club hopes you have enjoyed this program.